All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from the studios and corporate offices here in St. Catharines, and you're listening to us on Classic 1220 and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. If you'd like to send me an email address is xzone@classic1220.ca. My guest this hour, Exonation, the first hour of tonight's show, is Lynn Monet. She is a paranormal consultant and lecturer specializing in hauntings, dying, death, afterlife, and mental health pertaining to otherworldly attachments. She is an empath with the ability to see frequencies interdimensionally that most can't. I know I can't. Let me see here. Lynn is the world-renowned author of the 5-star rated omnipresent series, Colors of Heaven, Beginnings Never End, and The Gap. She holds a degree in biological science, and her website is lynnmonet.com. And joining us from the beautiful state of South Carolina is Lynn Monet. And Lynn, welcome to the X Zone.
Oh, thank you, Rob, so much for having me. I was really looking forward to doing this with you today.
Well, that's super. We're happy that you're joining us. What was it that happened to make you want to do that thing you do?
Well, first of all, being an end-of-life care nurse, I've been a nurse for over 30 years, and 17 of that has been in palliative and end-of-life care. In reference to, like, the book Colors of Heaven, seeing my mother pass away, I wrote the book Colors of Heaven to help take the stigma of death and dying away. But before that, ever since I've been little, I've had the gift of second sight, and I'd be happy to share that with you if you'd like me to.
Oh, I'd love to hear it, and I'm sure our listeners would too.
Okay. When I was 5 years old, my brother was 7. We were both in my parents' master bedroom, and just to let you know, we lived 3 short blocks behind a hospital that was connected to what they called back then a nursing home. Now they call them skilled facilities. And I was in my mother's jewelry box decorating myself with her jewelry, and my brother was on the floor with his cars, playing with his cars, and I turned to show him how glamorous I had made myself look. And all of a sudden I see him, he's fixated on the corner of the room. And it was commonplace for us living behind a hospital to see ghosts walking through the house. It was like, oh, there's a toaster, there's a door, there's a dead person. So it wasn't a big deal to us. So I'm looking into the corner of the wall, looking at what my brother's also fixated on, and all of a sudden there was this ectoplasm, this misting in the corner that instepped my brother's best friend John and his mother, father, and brother, and they were just standing there smiling at us. And of course my brother gets up and runs out the door calling for my mother. I get up and run out in the opposite direction looking for her, and my brother finds her first, and he says, Mom, he says, John and his family's here. They're here. And she said, well, I didn't even hear anybody knock. And he says, and they're in your bedroom. And she says, they're in my bedroom. Who let them in my bedroom? So of course she's rushing to usher these people out of her bedroom, and gets in there, and of course there's nothing there. So of course my brother got in trouble for that, and I kept my mouth shut because I didn't want to get in trouble too.
Smart
of course
lady.
He got even with me later on, but so the next day was the first day back to school after spring break, and my brother was on the bus, and of course John wasn't there. And then my brother got to the classroom, and he sat right next to John. John was his bestie, and again, John, not only was he not there, his desk was empty. And after the Pledge of Allegiance, the teacher stood in front of the classroom and announced that John would not be returning to school because he and his entire family perished in an auto accident
Ooh.
the day before. And it happened that day that my brother and I saw him. He was basically coming to say goodbye to my brother. So things started very, very early with me that way.
So where did it go from there? How did you become, the person that talks to dead people and everything else that you do? Like I was chuckling when you were saying that, there's the toaster, there's the door, there's the dead person.
Yes. Well, and they would be walking through in patient gowns, but I've had these gifts, and of course I was born in 1963, and of course back then you didn't talk about these sorts of things because they would literally send the men in white coats to pick you up and give you a lobotomy. So you didn't talk about that kind of stuff. But moving forward, when I was 10 years old, I had been raised Presbyterian, and my mother took a jaunt with the Jehovah's Witnesses, which is a book in itself, and I was still seeing things, and I was brought in front of the elders, and I was told terrible things, that I was seeing demons, that I was possessed, that I was going to die in Armageddon. And I'm just trembling as a 10-year-old hearing this. So I continued to see things, but I became so afraid of my gifts that I would dart out of the room just like anybody else, saying, "Oh, that's a ghost," and I would run afraid just like everybody else. But coming forward, as a single mother with 2 children, I had purchased a home, which is the first book, Omnipresent, which is part of a 5-book series once it is completed. And this house turned out to be so haunted that I never moved in. It was that bad. But being in that situation, I was connected with people of like mind, which then I started to realize that I wasn't so odd after all, that there were other people like me. And getting to connect with those people helped me to nurture my gifts again and not be afraid of them. So that's kind of how it all started.
It sounds like what you experienced in front of the elders of the Jehovah's Witnesses was child abuse.
It would, you know what? It would have been considered that now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It would have been considered that. But back then, there were, like I said, people in white coats would come and pick you up. So you were thought of as crazy if you mentioned seeing the kind of stuff that we saw in our house.
Tell us about your first book, Omnipresent.
Okay. Omnipresent is a book about a house that I did purchase. As I had mentioned, that I never moved into. The house was so very haunted. I had been looking for a house for a year as a single mother. And of course, my income was low and I could only afford certain things. And so, of course, the houses that in my price range, they either had a stinky dump next door, or it needed a lot of renovations, or, it had something undesirable about it, or in the neighborhood.
Okay.
So when this house came on the market, the realtor contacted me and she said, this house just came on the market. It is in your price range and it's almost too good to be true. And of course that should have resonated with me because it turned out to be too good to be true. And it was a 2,400 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with a large family room, formal dining area on a 1/2-acre Florida flat lot in North Carolina. Good luck finding one of those. It was a nice house. And so I was very proud to purchase it. And I even kept asking her as we're driving there, I'm like, can you please contact the realtor that's listing this house? Because it hadn't even been placed on the MLS yet. It had just come into the office with a colleague of hers who was in the process of getting the pictures and things printed to be able to list it in the MLS. And so after multiple calls, yes, the price was the correct price. And no, it did have indoor plumbing, and it wasn't next to a dump or some kind of a stinky paper mill. And it was a very beautiful house on a dead-end, quiet street in an area with good schools and low income taxes. So after moving into that house, many of the things that occurred in the house and trying to get help with those sorts of things led me to write the book Omnipresent, because it's not like you can just call up the Ghostbusters when you have a problem like that. And there were literally 2 demons and a young man that had hung himself in the house. The house was built in the 1970s. So people, it's not about the age of the house. A brand new house can be haunted if it's built in the wrong place, because it's about the age of the ground that it's built on. So I learned that lesson very, very quickly. But I had probably 13 different denominations of religion over there to bless the house. And basically, no, well, the last one was able to release the young man that had hung himself. And this was also verified by the next door neighbor, who was the first house on the street, even before the house that I bought was built. And he verified that there was a young man that did hang himself in the stairwell of the house of the people who originally built the house.
And the real estate people did not disclose this to you.
Well, no, this house had been sold so many times, and there was even a period of time that it sat bank owned because people would dump and run. I mean, the people that I purchased it from actually bought it out of foreclosure, and they only lived in it for 6 months, and sold it and left. And that was another thing that was peculiar too, is with the house that I was told that the people had moved out, that they had to move out of state for some new job. They were anxious to sell because now they were paying 2 mortgages and all of this story. And I found out during the closing that none of that was true. They had only moved 20 minutes away. They were living with the wife's parents, and they didn't change jobs. So, I didn't question it. I was just thrilled to have such a grand home as a single mother to provide for to provide for my children. And so I was just thankful and assumed that it was that it was God's gift to me and my family for going through so much hardship. And it turned out to be the booby prize.
What kind of things happened in the house while you were there?
Oh, wow. There were so many things, but the things that were really, really highlighted, and I know with the time frame that we have to speak about things, is I couldn't keep workers in the house. I had 4 different workers come to the house, and most of them, the first 3 didn't last past 2:00 in the afternoon to finish the work. The last one that I had there was stoned all the time, so he carried his own demons with him, and they didn't bother him. And again, I didn't care he was stoned as long as he finished up the work that I needed done in the house. But sure. Another thing too, I purchased the house in March, and I was wanting to let my kids finish out their school year where they were and then transfer them. We were going to move in the summer. It would give me time to do renovations. But the first 2 workers sounded like they had reasonable things that had occurred in their life that they weren't able to finish the job. But the third one...
Lynn, what I think we're going to do is we're going to take a break right now.
Okay.
And take a deep breath and calm down. Talk slower. Enjoy yourself. No, you're amongst friends here. Okay?
Okay. Yes.
All right, Exo Nation. Lynn Monet is our special guest. Her website is lynnmonet.com. That's LYNNMONET.com. And this is the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. No, that's midnight. I keep on... Oh, watch. I'm going to get more hours of this show. That's what's happening. Well, you're listening to us right now on your hometown radio, Classic 1220. Don't go away. Welcome back to X Zone Nation. I'm Rob McConnell, and you're listening to the X Zone tonight, right here from our hometown radio station, your hometown radio station now as well, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. Lynn Monet is our special guest. Her website is lynnmonet.com, and we've been talking to Lynn about her indoctrination into the paranormal. And Lynn, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to continue with what happened in that house? You were telling us about, let me see, one crew came in, didn't even last the entire afternoon. You had another worker who came in who brought his own demons. And what else happened?
Well, I got to find out what was happening with the workers, with the third person that came in, because he
Mm-hmm.
was related to a friend of mine that I worked with. And I'll be happy to tell you that story if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay. He was with me at the house, and I was painting the hallway just outside of my son's room where he was putting in tongue and groove flooring.
Mm-hmm.
And I turn and I notice this young man that was coming up the stairs. The house was a split level house, so you would enter in on a foyer and you would either go down the stairs to the lower level or up the stairs to the upper level. And I'm looking, and there's this young man coming up the stairs, and I saw him in my peripheral vision. He had on a white Oxford shirt and jeans, and I turned and I said, "Did you knock?" Because I thought maybe it was some disoriented person or maybe somebody that I didn't hear knock. And all of a sudden I looked directly at it and there's nothing there. So I realized that there was a ghost. And I hear Bobby in the room saying, "No, maybe I dropped something." He thought I was talking to him. So I left that day to go and pick up my children, and I'm sitting in the car line at school, and I get a phone call from Bobby, and he says, "I've got to go. I've got to leave right now. Something's weird about this house that I've never experienced before," and the line dropped. So it took me about a half an hour to get back hold of him again. And of course, he's like, "Oh, well, it was nothing, but I'd rather be there when you're there." So he didn't want to talk about it, but yet he never came back. So I asked my friend at work, and I said, "Listen, the next time you see Bobby, would you ask him what happened in the house? Because he never came back, and I'm thinking it might be something paranormal related." And she agreed to do it. So 4th of July came, and he was over at her house, and he was drinking and feeling a little bit talkative after a few beers. And he started to tell her. She said, "What happened at Lynn's house?" And he said, "Lynn is such a nice lady." He said, "And I feel bad that I didn't finish her house, but that house is words that I can't say on the radio that starts with an F and up." And he said, so she asked him, "Well, what happened?" And he told her that he was sitting on one of those garden rolling seats, and he was putting in the tongue and groove flooring. He had a mallet, a trowel,
Mm-hmm.
and a wood block to tap it in with. And when he went to go to reach for his tools, they were gone. So he scooted, thinking that maybe he had run over them and they weren't there. And then all of a sudden he turns, and about 6.5 feet away, there they are, paralleling each other, lined up in front of the door. And he's like, "Wait a minute, I didn't get up and move them. I don't know how they got there. Maybe Lynn came back and she's playing a joke. Maybe she snuck in and picked up the tools and moved them over there." So he gets up and he looks out into the hallway and he starts calling for me. And of course, there's no response. And he picks up the tools to start to go back, and he's freaked out too. So he turns on the light. He has a battery operated transistor radio with him, and he sits back down, and within seconds the light turns itself off. The radio then turns itself off, and he can hear the tools scooting behind him. And as he looks, they line up exactly as they were before, paralleling each other in front of that bedroom door. And he said that he couldn't get out of there fast enough. So that was one of the things. I had a friend that went to the house that same day, because when Bobby left, he left so fast that he left the windows opened in the house, and I was going to be working that weekend and not able to get back before the following Tuesday. And so I asked my neighbor, would she please come with me, because there was one window that had an air conditioner in it that needed to be lifted in from the second floor, and I needed help. So she agreed to go with me, and I was telling her about the issues with the house, and did she believe in ghosts? And she says, "Oh, yeah, I believe in ghosts." So when we got to the house, there was a problem constantly with the key opening the door. And I was having a problem this time with the key, and my friend steps into the foyer. And there's one thing about these entities, is that you don't want to mock them. They do have an intelligence about them. And my friend Ellen stood in the doorway, and she said, "Oh, you're not going to leave me here and let the boogeyman get me, are you? Ha, ha, ha." And they targeted her. So after we pulled in the air conditioner and secured all of the windows, we went into the kitchen, because I wanted to show off the house a little bit. It was my first time having her there.
Sure.
I was proud. So I'm showing her these decorative horse heads that my daughter has for her bedroom, and I hear this buzzing, gurgling sound coming up behind me. Kind of sounded like a didgeridoo. And as I turned, I see this ectoplasmic wall, floor to ceiling, wall to wall, moving in on us. And I didn't say anything because I thought I was the only one that was hearing it. And all of a sudden, my friend says, "What's that noise?" And I said, "Can you hear that?" And she said, "Yeah, what is it?" And I said, "Remember I told you on the way here that there were some ghosts. We're here. We'll just finish this up and we're going to leave." And she started screaming. She said, "It got me. What is it? What is it? A spider bite?" And she started trying to pull her shirt up and back. She says, "It's burning. It's burning." When I lifted up her shirt and back, she had a 4-inch claw mark between her shoulder blades that was just starting to bead blood and welt.
Wow.
And while I'm looking at this, she starts screaming again and gets one on the front part of her stomach, just below her belly button off to the side. So people were getting clawed. My children and I, we only spent 2 nights in the house. The second night, the demon did present. I actually saw it. The dog wouldn't go into the house with us. My son went home. He had bite marks on his legs that were not there.
Did you take any pictures?
Well, the paranormal group that came in from Georgia with Father Andrew Calder came in, and they took pictures of it, and he got them on infrared, and there were different things that he had got, but he told me that it wasn't good to look at them because it would kind of draw the negativity back, that I kind of needed to
But can we just stall this for a second, because you're a medical professional.
Mm-hmm.
You've got people who were attacked or injured by an unseen entity. Why wouldn't you take pictures yourself of these people who had these injuries?
Well, part of it was because in the time frame, it was over 18 years ago, and cell phones didn't have the capacity to take good pictures.
Okay,
at that point.
let me ask you this: did you call the police?
Well, no. I mean, what was I going to do? Call them and tell them that something invisible just clawed my friend to the point of bleeding?
If you've got somebody who's been attacked or injured, that would give credibility to your story. Now, I'm not saying that you're not telling the truth, but what it does is it leaves a door open to say, well, she didn't take any pictures. She didn't make any reports. How do we know it's true?
Well, because I've got over 13 witnesses that either were clawed and or experienced different things in the house with the entities that were in the home. So, I mean, yeah, I do have witnesses that were in the home, and I understand that. But I mean, when you're in that moment and something that bizarre happens, you don't think logically. You just want to get out of there and get down the road and to get away from it. On the second book that I wrote for the Omnipresent series, the front cover is a picture of the house, and there is a demon's face in the window of that house that can clearly be seen.
Once again, how can people will probably say it was photoshopped.
Well, they can say that if they want to, but the people that experienced what I experienced in that house would definitely tell you that it was very, very real.
Right.
And it wasn't photoshopped. And like I said, I had Georgia Paranormal come up there. I had a Presbyterian minister in there at the same time, all of them blessing that house at the same time.
Yeah.
And everybody experienced things that were in that house that I'm telling you, and they will definitely, they do affidavits and come forward and vouch for it.
So how did you finally get rid of it, or you just decided, hey, I'm not staying, you can have the house? And did you sell the house?
I did sell the house, and I couldn't bring myself to sell it to a family with children. I had put it up for sale by owner, and a family actually with children did come over to look at it. And after the children came up from the downstairs area with eyes as big as saucers after seeing what they saw down there, and overhearing the little girl saying to the brother, "Tommy can have the creepy room downstairs," I realized that they saw the entities too, as other people were, and that I couldn't bring myself to sell it to children. So I sold it to a retired couple that came up from Florida. And there was one point that we were exiting the house, and I overhear the wife saying to the husband, "Why did you push me?" And he said, "I didn't push you. I'm 3 steps back on the stairs. There's no way that I could have pushed you to reach you." And she says, "Well, I don't know what happened then, but I knew what happened, because one of the hell dogs of the 2 demons," and yes, there were 2 demons that were actually demons, and the young man in the house that was verified by also an American Indian woman who had come to try to help clear the house as well. But I couldn't bring myself to not say something. my conscience got the best of me, and I'm like, I can't do to them what was done to me. So when they came out the door, I said to them, I said, do you believe in ghosts? And they immediately cut me off, and they said, we're Baptists. We don't believe in those sorts of things. We don't entertain those sorts of things, and we're protected. So I'm like, okay, I respected the fact that they didn't want to hear about it. And lo and behold, 6 months later, they moved out.
No, that raises an interesting question. If you believe it, you're bound to experience something because you're anticipating. But if you don't believe it, is it possible that whatever was in there wouldn't be challenged by the people who didn't believe?
Well, I had that same thought, and I thought, well, maybe these people have got something that I don't, because, when I moved in there, I wasn't expecting that to be there either. And multiple things kept happening on their own. And I kept rationalizing it, because here I signed on the dotted line. It's not like you can go back to the bank and say, gee, here's the house back. It's haunted. I don't want it anymore.
Right.
So, and then after the fact, after the house was sold, I did reach out and get in touch with the people that sold the house to me, which once we connected and they realized that they weren't going to get in trouble for selling me the house. I mean, the lady explained to me that they were very late coming to the closing, because when she found out that I had children, she didn't want to sell me the house either, because her children in the 6 months that they lived there were showing up with bite marks and
all right,
claw
Lynn,
marks
we've got to
and
take
strange
another break.
bruises.
Please stand by. Exonation Lynn Monet is our special guest. www.lynnmonet.com. That's LYNNMONET.com. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, right here on the shores of the Great Lake, Ontario in St. Catharines. And you're listening to us in your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streaming classic1220.ca. Welcome back, everyone. Lynn Monet is our special guest, and we're talking about a house that she bought that was, can we call it the house from hell?
Yes, absolutely. That would be a good term for it.
When you had the investigators come in, what did they do? What did they find? And how did the house react to members of the clergy entering it?
They set up infrared cameras, of course, in the dark the night before, and they did catch things on it. They had a whole group that literally took hours, probably almost 12 hours, blessing the house, going through with sage and all kinds of things, saying prayer over the house and all sorts of things. And the thing is, too, is even after that, when I had a Native American woman come in, we saw things in the house at the same time. So you could see the orbs darting in and out of the walls with the little segmented tails that they had while they were trying to dart away from the priest as he walked through the house. But the thing is that for whatever reason it didn't work, and I was told to follow up with a Catholic priest who was trembling in the house by the time we got there for him to do it. He was so scared. And the thing is that they feed on negative emotion and negative, any type of negative action. So he was actually making it worse. And after having the first group come in to try to clear the house, and they spent literally 12 hours and set up a night before for investigative purposes, to have this Catholic priest come in, he literally was in and out in 10 minutes. All he did was go down the hallway flinging and squirting from his bottle holy water into each room while he said the prayers, and he almost dropped his Bible because he was trembling so much. And he was ready to go and back in the car, did not speak a word to me on the way back to the church, and just about fell getting out of my car. So The thing is I tried to reach out for help with the issue. I even initially, I mean, it's an unusual situation, and back then, paranormal was not as popular. People didn't really investigate as much back then as they do now. And the thing about it is so starting out, I went through the yellow pages. I went down the list of the yellow pages trying to seek out help, and I was told by churches that if I attended their church that I wouldn't be having this problem. And I even had mentioned to one lady that I was a single mother, and she assumed that I was promiscuous and that that's why I was having the problem, even though I hadn't been out on a date in 4 years.
My God.
So, yeah. And so it was very difficult to even find help. So I had to initially approach an Episcopalian priest at my work who had known me for 7 years to ask, what do I do with this problem? And fortunately, he believed me. He knew that I was credible, and he had known me, as I said, for 7 years. And he directed me to contact the Catholic diocese in Charlotte, North Carolina, because the house was in North Carolina. But it was very, very hard. Like I said, before, you can't just call, the Ghostbusters. Now you can, but back then you couldn't. People, they shunned away from you. And even the Presbyterian minister told me that when he addressed the issue to his church, he said that he became more afraid of the Bible thumpers than he did the things in my house because of the way that they reacted.
Now, when the investigators were there, did they actually catch these demons on tape? And, how did they react?
Well, apparently this is something that they did for their work. Because once I had gone to the house and my friend was clawed to the point of bleeding, I came home and I started getting on the internet for the first time looking for help. I thought, okay, there's a problem with the house that's spiritual. A blessing should take care of it. I wanted to move into that house with my kids. And so I went through different pages, and most of them just wanted to come and take pictures and then advertise the pictures on their websites. And I finally came across the Georgia Paranormal Group, and got a call back from Father Andrew Calder, and he explained to me how to take pictures of the house. And the thing is I wasn't living in the house during this time. I only spent 2 nights there, and I never moved in. So I was going back home to the home that I was living in. And there was no problems in that house. And that was another thing, too. People were like, well, it must be something wrong with you. And it's like, no, there's nothing happening where I'm sleeping at night. It's that house there's issues with. So when they came in, he said that he did, in fact, get pictures. He would not show them to me because, again, he said that once you clear the house, you need to just move forward. The more you think about it, or the more that you worry about it, or that you want to see it, it entertains it and draws it back in, was his belief system at the time. And so I did what he said. I mean, he was the only person that was helping me, so I didn't have a background on that sort of thing. I mean, I would see ghosts, but I never saw creepy things like that. And so I did, I followed through and did what he said. But there was one point, I had no longer been taking my children there. And finally, after the blessing on the house, I was told that I could take the children back, that everything was clear. And I went back, and my son brought a friend of his, and my son's friend came down the descending stairs into the garage where I was getting ready to put gas in the lawnmower to mow the grass. And he's holding his neck and he's wincing. And I'm like, Zach, what happened? And he says, I don't know what happened, but it hit me when I got to the bottom of the stairs. No. I had to move his hand to look to see if there was a mark or anything, and there was nothing there. But then he started to actively retch. And I knew that because of all of the attacks that my mother had had in the house while she was there with me trying to bless the house, of the overt nausea that occurs, that you almost can't breathe, but yet you don't actually have vomit come out. You just feel like you want to. So I ushered him to the car, and I said to my kids, I said, it's time to go, because I knew that Zach was being attacked. And I told my kids, I said, do not come in through the front door and come down those stairs. Just go straight to the car. So my son, being outside, went straight to the car, and my daughter didn't hear me. And so she comes down the stairs to the bottom of the stairs. And as she gets to the very bottom stairs, she starts yelling out in pain and starts grabbing her ankle. And she said, I don't, she says, I can't, I can't bear weight. She couldn't even walk out. She was crawling out of the garage, and she was saying, I don't know what happened. I didn't do anything, but it felt like a hot skewer just went right through my ankle, and that it's been twisted around like 5 times, even though I didn't do anything to cause it. So I assisted her to the car, and I closed up the house from the outside and got in the car and started driving away. And everybody, their symptoms started to fade as we started to get away from the house. But I called up the priest and I said, look, there is no way as a mother that I could drag my children through this mess and live in that house. Your house is supposed to be your sanctuary, but for me, if I'm in the house having a Thanksgiving dinner with my family, extended family over, and and I see a demon walk through the room, I can't stand up and scream out, I command you to leave in the name of Jesus Christ. How many of my guests do you think are going to stay for dessert? And not only that, how many of them are going to invite me to their house because I might be bringing more than chocolate cake?
Oh, my Lord. Did you get anybody from the city to come down, the city engineering department to come down, or the city inspection to take a look at the house to see if they could find anything?
I did have a thorough inspection done prior to purchasing it, prior to knowing that. And I mean, the house was in good shape. I mean, it was, like I said, the house was built in the 1970s. It wasn't even that old of a house. And the base of it was secure. But, there was one bedroom that a foul odor kept emitting from one of the walls. And and that smell never went away, not even after living there for months. It smelled like dead body, something dead in there. And sometimes the odor would follow you from bedroom to bedroom in the house.
How old was the house?
The house was built in 1976, and that was 18 years ago. So the house was maybe around approximately 30 years old. Maybe it wasn't that old.
Did anybody consider the possibility that there might have been black mold between the walls and the what is it called?
I had that
bristle board.
I had that checked. I had that checked by the inspector. I had for termites, for mold, for mildew. I even had to put in that machine for the admissions things, that other I can't remember, radon or something like that. I had all of that checked, everything, and it all came back. It was fine.
All right, now with the children that suffered these attacks, did you take them to a doctor? I understand you're a nurse, but you did take them to a doctor to have them checked to see if there was anything that the doctor could possibly imagine what the marks were.
Well, considering they were dog-looking bite marks on my son's legs, I didn't take him because he wasn't bleeding. Being a nurse, they weren't swelling, but they were purple, and you could count the teeth.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it? And not only that, being a single mother too, all of a sudden these strange bruises and stuff start showing up on your kids.
Yeah.
You don't want to have DSS called.
No, I understand that. I understand that, Lynn. But here again, you have the golden opportunity to get your case validated by a member of the medical community that, yes, there were marks. Yes, they looked like this. No, they didn't look like that. Take pictures of these marks. That would have added, there's a lot of, what proof do you have, basically, besides the people who say that they saw something, gave you an affidavit? But what other proof do you have?
Well, I have a picture of one of the ghosts in the house. Actually, is a naked male with his hands covering the front of his part. I also have a picture of the demon's face in the window of the house. In addition to that, I have some other. One of my friends also got a picture of something hovering in the hallway as well. And I mean, and people can believe it or not. I really, they can believe it or not. So.
But. There's 3 sides to every story. There's his side, there's her side, and then there's the truth. It's a matter of perception. It's a matter of the way you see things and how you want to see things. I'm not saying that this didn't happen. I'm just taking it from the way that after doing this show for over 30 years, that people sitting at home are saying, oh, come on. She had the opportunity to take the child to the hospital or the doctor, get a picture, get a report, but she didn't. Why not? We've got to take a break. I'll be right back as we continue this very interesting hour here on the X Zone with Lynn Monet. www.lynnmonet.com. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight. From our studios and corporate offices in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220. And email me anytime at xzone@classic1220.ca. We'll be back after this break. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. Lynn Monet is our special guest. Her website is lynnmonet.com. Lynn, since moving out of that house, have you had any encounters with ghosts or demonic entities or strange smells in the home that you moved into now, where you live? No,
No, but I mean, I do have the gift of second sight. I have had some ghost experiences in my work with people that are getting ready to cross over and seeing loved ones coming in. Actually, I feel that it's a gift. I don't look at it as something negative. I just recently inherited a house that has an active elemental in it, and that's been verified by 2 different paranormal groups that have come in and actually gotten pictures and EVP readings, and also communicated with it through a flashlight. So, I've had multiple experiences since then.
You mentioned the gift of second sight. What is that?
It's the ability to see dead people, to see ghosts, and to see loved ones come in and collect their transitioning souls of people right before death.
So you actually see these people as if they're full-bodied apparitions?
I do. The way that I see them is out of my peripheral vision. I can see them as plain as I can see a person standing in the room. I can tell you what they have on as far as their clothing. I can tell you what color their hair is, how it's styled, even eye color, if I'm close enough. If they're at a distance, which is like about 10 feet away from me, they look more opaque, kind of like if you are walking in the sunlight towards a shopping mall window and a JCPenney and you see your own reflection in it, that opaque appearance is how they appear to me. And when they're up close, it's an energetic waffling to the air, kind of like gas fumes or hot vapors coming off of a road. I mean, after all, we are energy. And if you want to take it from a scientific level, energy can't be created or destroyed. So it is an energetic waffling that I see with spirits. And I have multiple stories that can back that up, that verify that there are spirits that come in at the time of death.
What do you think happens after a person dies?
Well, what I have seen and what I have been told by people that are in the active state of rallying, where they are kind of in and out of their body, they have periods of time where it appears that the eyes are kind of glazed over and their toes are kind of flaccid, and all of a sudden their eyes brighten and their toes perk up and they come back and they start talking about things that they have seen on the other side. I've had a patient actually that was coming back asking her niece about children that hadn't been born yet, and they talk about some of the beautiful things. And also getting to be part of my mother's passing was very, very beautiful for me, because I actually got to watch her come out of her body and kind of see some of the festivities and the beautiful party basically that they had prepared for her to welcome her home.
Who are they?
Well, for one thing, when she when the loved ones started to come in to collect her, a lot of them were people that I recognized from this lifetime that had crossed over. There were some people that I didn't recognize, but when she crossed over, she did
Oh,
recognize
so
them.
these are people who actually came to where she was passing to greet her on her journey to the other side.
Yes, they were
Okay.
not physically embodied. And the thing is you know, when people are getting ready to pass away, well, first of all, too, I might say that there are three different kinds of death. There is a natural death, which
Hmm.
most of us have. There's sudden death, and there is a near-death experience, and all of them are kind of handled differently. In my mother's case, it was a natural death, and even with natural death, a lot of times, in my experience as a palliative care nurse for over 17 years, sometimes they choose to stay embodied until the last minute, and sometimes the spirit will leave even a day before and allow the physical body to finish. In my mother's case, she chose to stay in until the last minute. And the reason why I say this is because even though she could no longer verbalize or open her
Hmm.
eyes, she would respond by moving up and down her eyebrows and trying to verbalize words, and it was appropriate. People would come in and say, "Hi, Phyllis," and she would do the eyebrow thing and the mouthing thing. And as she got closer to her time to transition over and the room started to fill with some of the misting of the ectoplasm on the other side, and I could see movement. And sometimes I'd see a pant leg stick through or a shoulder. And yes, people, when your loved ones come to help you cross over, they do show up in clothes. Nobody wants to see mom naked. I think that would be a little shocking for anybody. But the the ectoplasm started to efface up towards the head of her bed. And as people start to transition, the filters start to efface, and they're able to hear the telepathy of the spirit world as well as hearing the verbalization of the people in physical form. And I saw my grandmother step in, and she looked the exact same as I remembered seeing her last. And she stepped over to the bed and she leaned forward. My mother was sitting at a slant and said something into my mother's ear. And my mother responded with the mouthing thing and the eyebrow thing. And I then saw my youngest sister frantically waving from behind my grandmother, who had been murdered by a jealous boyfriend. And I could smell her perfume. It absolutely filled the room. But as she transitioned, and I told her, I kissed her, I said, "Mom, Graham and Robin are here to help you cross over. It's time for you to go." She she did the eyebrow thing and the mouthing thing, and she literally took her breath in 10 minutes or so. And the thing is the whole room then effaced, and I could see in there. I noticed that they were huddling up towards her bed, at the head of her bed, and I was wondering what they were doing. And when they opened up, my mother's spirit was standing in the center, kind of like as if they were trying to stabilize her spirit feed. And the feeling of love and elation that comes from that other side during that time, there are no words that can express it, and there's not a feeling that can touch it. It just is, and you can't help but smile. So I'm sitting there watching my mother now being greeted one by one by her loved ones on the other side, and how happy she was. And I'm smiling, and I glance over and I notice that she has stopped breathing. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I better call the nurse, because if the nurse walks in and my mother's just stopped breathing and I'm sitting here smiling, that's not a normal response. You know, they might think I did something to her. So I called them in, and the nurse came over. Something very interesting about the other side that connects the galactic beliefs with the spiritual beliefs, and everybody is right, is not only were there beings there that were loved ones and also angels, but there were these very, very beautiful, magnificently tall, white-haired beings that appeared to be from somewhere else. And they were so tall that their heads were half out of these 10-foot ceilings. I mean, it was like cutting them just at the top of where their eyebrows would be. And I say that they looked like they were from somewhere else. They were just gorgeous, but they appeared somewhat human, but
Hmm.
not completely. And the thing is if you consider, with all of the stars that there are in the sky that are suns and to solar systems outside of just our solar system that we know, it would be ignorant to think that we are the only species or people in a solar system, that there
Right.
are other planets with other beings that also are made of energy, that when their life's complete, where they're at, they have to go somewhere too. So I'm not talking about cryptids and bug-looking things. These were magnificent. I don't know if they were male or female, but they were just gorgeous. And the energy that they carried was that at the level of an angel, but yet they didn't have wings.
Let me ask you this. We've got about
Yes.
3 minutes left. My
Okay.
producers just said too. How has all this been on your children? How have they reacted? How have they come through with all the paranormal events that have happened in their little lives?
My children are gifted as well. However, my son does suffer from post-traumatic stress from being in that house, the haunted house. He is 25 years old and he still won't turn off the light at night to sleep. That is how adversely it affected him. The cover of the book is an actual event that occurred in the house. He helped me design the book. It was when he was sitting in the master bathroom toilet and the hands on the cover of the book were coming in at him. However, now as an older person, even though he still doesn't like to sleep without the light on, he sees spirits too. So, which is kind of where the elemental thing comes in the house that I just inherited that I had mentioned,
Right.
that we've seen both at the same time. And yes, and it's been very, very interesting dealing with that because you can't use the traditional spiritual means because those elementals were created at the time that the earth was and way before religion came into play. So religious, clearing with sage and praying doesn't work.
But,
That
you
you've
know,
got handled
it all,
differently.
once again, I think it's a matter of belief, because if you believe in God, then he is the creator of everything,
Yes, he is.
So why doesn't it work? Why doesn't the power of God, the name of Jesus Christ, expel these demons?
They do expel the demons, but I don't know what it is with the elementals. It seems to be different because normally when I go into clear homes, I go in with a
Yeah.
fire component and prayer. And normally I give them the opportunity to leave if they don't want to. Then once you light the fire, the oxygen starts sucking into the pan and they get sucked in the pan and stuck in the bottom. And this did not work in this situation. And it was kind of like this little troll looking thing that looked like a troll off of Hogwarts. A banker off of Hogwarts was just basically standing there. Is that all you got? I mean, they were created by God too, and they were the guardians of the forest. And I had never even entertained something like that before in my life. It wasn't my forte. It wasn't my thing. I did ghosts and dead people. I wasn't interested in doing anything else, but I knew other people, managed those sorts of things. But now I've run into this situation. So we have a resident elemental at my sister's old place.
Now, did your sister bring that elemental? Did the elemental attach to her, or was he part of the house when she moved in?
She was part of the house when she
Wow.
moved in, and she mistakenly picked up a rock out of the yard and brought it into the house, which is why he was coming into the house, because he wanted his rock back.
Lynn, I want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. Unfortunately, we've just run out of time. And Exo Nation, if you'd like to find out more about our guest this hour, Lynn Monet, please visit her website, www.lynnmonet.com. Well, that's it for this hour. I will be back maybe in another hour, maybe tomorrow. I'm going to have a bit of a cliffhanger here. This is the Exo, and I am Rob McConnell. And as always, it's great having you here as a member of the Exo Nation. 30 plus years doing the show. And you know what? Everyone has a story. All you need to do is give them a chance to tell it. We'll be back on the other side of this break as the Exo continues, right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streaming around the world on classic1220.ca.